In a downtown San Diego McDonald's, a homeless veteran was about to face his worst nightmare. What started as a quiet morning coffee took a shocking turn when he came face to face with Officer Brad Hutchins' taser. Tyler "Ghost" Mitchell wasn't your typical homeless man. For 15 years, he had served as a decorated Navy SEAL Team 6 operator, known for his unwavering moral compass. When he encountered police demanding ID for simply existing, he had no idea he was walking into a conspiracy. Tyler's brutal tasing would trigger an underground veteran network that operated with military precision. His SEAL brothers, who'd sworn an oath, leave no one behind. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but Tyler "Ghost" Mitchell still held the ceramic mug between his hands, drawing comfort from its weight. The McDonald's on Fifth Avenue wasn't much. Fluorescent lights that hummed too loud, plastic chairs that had seen better decades, and the persistent smell of grease that clung to everything. But it was warm, and Maria Gonzalez didn't ask questions. When he nursed a single cup of coffee for 3 hours, from his corner booth, Tyler could see the entire restaurant. Old habits. His eyes tracked movement patterns, noted the exits, catalogued potential threats. The early morning crowd was predictable. Construction workers grabbing breakfast burritos before their shifts, night shift security guards stopping for coffee on their way home, a few insomniacs who looked as tired as he felt. Maria approached with the coffee pot, her movements quiet and respectful. She was young, maybe late 20s, with calloused hands that spoke of long hours and hard work. When she refilled his cup without being asked, Tyler nodded his thanks. "Morning," she said softly, her accent carrying the musical lilt of someone who'd learned English as a second language. "You okay today?" It was their ritual. She asked, he answered with a nod or a shake of his head, and life continued. Today was a nod day, though barely. The nightmares had been particularly vivid. The sound of children screaming, the crack of rifle fire, Colonel Blackwood's cold voice ordering the execution of civilians who'd gotten too close to their classified operation in Syria. Tyler's hands trembled slightly as he lifted the cup to his lips. 2 years ago, he'd been Lieutenant Tyler Mitchell, Navy SEAL Team 6, decorated veteran of 15 years of service. 2 years ago, he'd had a house in Coronado, a wife who loved him, and the respect of his peers. 2 years ago, he'd made the mistake of trying to report war crimes to his superiors. The bureaucratic assassination had been swift and thorough. Blackwood's influence ran deep. Tyler found himself facing trumped-up charges of insubordination, his security clearance revoked, his benefits stripped away. The legal battles had consumed his savings, his marriage, and eventually his home. His wife, Sarah, had tried to stand by him, but watching the man she'd married disappear into a haze of PTSD and legal documents had broken something fundamental between them. Now, Tyler lived in the spaces between, shelters when they had room, doorways when they didn't, and places like this McDonald's, where Maria Gonzalez saw him as human rather than invisible. He wore his old military surplus jacket not out of pride, but because it had deep pockets and kept him warm. His boots were ridsoled twice and would need it again soon. Everything he owned fit in a backpack that sat beside him in the booth, positioned for quick access. His face was clean-shaven. He maintained that much dignity, using the McDonald's bathroom sink each morning in a ritual that helped him remember who he used to be. The bell above the door chimed, and Tyler's trained senses immediately catalogued. The new arrivals. 2 police officers, their uniforms crisp despite the early hour. The older one, 40-something, the bearing of a veteran, scanned the restaurant professionally. The younger one had different energy, aggressive, looking for trouble. Officer Brad Hutchins had spent the night writing tickets and hassling homeless people in Balboa Park. He was tired, wired on energy drinks, and frustrated that his aggressive approach to policing hadn't earned him the respect he thought he deserved from his training officer. When his eyes landed on Tyler, sitting alone in the corner booth, he saw an opportunity. "You see that?" Hutchins muttered to his partner, Officer Kevin Drake. "Homeless guy's been camping in here all morning." Drake followed his gaze. "Maria knows him. He's not causing trouble." "It's about standards," Hutchins said, his voice carrying the righteousness of someone who'd never experienced real hardship. "You let one slide, next thing you know, this place is a homeless shelter." Tyler felt the shift in the room's energy. His peripheral vision tracked the officer's approach, while he kept his eyes fixed on his coffee. He'd learned to read tension the way meteorologists read storm patterns, and this particular storm was heading straight for him. "Morning, officers," Maria called from behind the counter, her voice carefully neutral. "Can I get you something?" Hutchins ignored her, focusing on Tyler with the intensity of a predator who'd found wounded prey. "Excuse me, sir, how long have you been sitting here?" Tyler looked up slowly, meeting the officer's eyes with the calm steadiness that had served him well in combat zones. "Good morning, officer. I bought coffee. I'm drinking it." "That cup's been empty for an hour," Hutchins said, though he had no way of knowing that. "This isn't a shelter. It's a restaurant," Tyler replied evenly. "I'm a customer." Drake stepped forward, sensing the escalation. "Brad, he's not bothering anyone." But Hutchins was committed now, driven by insecurities that had nothing to do with Tyler and everything to do with his own need to assert dominance. "I need to see some ID." Tyler's jaw tightened. He knew his rights, but he also knew how quickly situations like this could spiral. "Am I under arrest? Don't get smart with me. ID now." "I haven't committed a crime," Tyler said, his voice still calm, but carrying an undertone of steel that made Drake's hand drift unconsciously toward his radio. This wasn't a broken homeless man. This was someone with training. "Loitering is a crime," Hutchins shot back. "Trespassing is a crime. Now show me some goddamn ID Before you what?" Tyler asked, rising slowly from the booth. He was taller than Hutchins expected, broader through the shoulders despite his circumstances. The way he moved, controlled, balanced, ready, set off alarm bells in the more experienced officer's mind. "Brad," Drake warned, but Hutchins had gone too far to back down now. In his mind, this was about respect, about authority, about proving himself to a training officer who treated him like a liability. "Turn around and put your hands on the table." "For what?" Tyler asked. "For whatever I say." The McDonald's had gone silent. Maria gripped the counter, her knuckles white. The few customers present watched the confrontation with the horrified fascination of people witnessing a car accident. Tyler looked at Hutchins, really looked at him, and saw a young man desperate to prove something to himself and everyone around him. He saw fear masked as aggression, insecurity dressed up as authority, and he made a decision that prioritized de-escalation over pride. "Okay," Tyler said quietly, turning toward the table. But his compliance didn't satisfy Hutchins. It infuriated him. The calm acceptance felt like condescension, like this homeless vagrant was humoring him. Without warning, without justification, Hutchins drew his taser. "Officer Hutchins, no!" Drake shouted. Tyler turned at the commotion, his hands still visible, his posture non-threatening. For a split second, his eyes met Maria's across the restaurant. In that moment, she saw not a homeless man or a problem to be solved, but someone's son, someone's brother, someone who'd served his country and deserved better than this. The taser's electrodes struck Tyler in the chest. 50,000 volts coursed through his body, dropping him to the floor as his muscles seized uncontrollably. His head struck the tile with a sickening crack, and he convulsed helplessly as the Electricity overrode his nervous system. Jesus Christ, Brad. Drake grabbed the taser from his partner's hands. What the hell is wrong with you? Maria was already on her phone, dialing 911 with shaking fingers, while using her other hand to record everything on her cell phone camera. "I need an ambulance at the McDonald's on 5th Avenue, she said into the phone, her voice steady despite her fear. Police just tased an unarmed man. The other customers were backing away, some recording with their phones, others heading for the exits. Tyler lay on the floor, his body slowly regaining control as the electrical assault ended. When he could finally focus his eyes, he saw Maria kneeling beside him, her hand hovering over his shoulder, wanting to offer comfort but afraid to touch him while the situation remained volatile. "I'm sorry," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry this happened." Tyler tried to speak, but could only manage a weak nod. As consciousness fully returned, so did the implications of what had just occurred. His cover was blown, questions would be asked, records would be checked, and somewhere in a corporate office or government building, someone would flag the name Tyler Mitchell and remember why that name needed to disappear permanently. Maria's 911 call was being recorded, logged into the system, cross-referenced with other databases. Within minutes, an automated alert would ping on secure phones across the country, reaching an underground network of veterans who'd sworn an oath that went deeper than politics or bureaucracy, leave no one behind. As Tyler lay on the cold McDonald's floor, tasting blood and fighting to steady his breathing, he had no idea that his long ordeal was about to take a very different turn. The system had failed him again, but this time his brothers were listening. Tyler's convulsions had barely stopped when Maria's 911 call triggered something far more sophisticated than a standard emergency response. 3 miles away, Sergeant Tommy "Doc" Williams was checking vitals on a cardiac patient in the back of his ambulance when his secure phone vibrated with a pattern he hadn't felt in 6 months. 3 short pulses, pause, 3 long, pause, 3 short, SOS. Doc's blood went cold as he read the encrypted message that appeared on his screen. "Ghost down, 5th and Broadway. Police involved. Immediate response required." Ghost. Tyler Mitchell, his old teammate, his brother, the man who'd pulled him out of a burning Humvee in Kandahar when shrapnel had turned Doc's leg into hamburger meat. The man who'd been systematically destroyed by a system that should have protected him. "Martinez," Doc called to his partner, "I need you to take point on this transport." "You okay, Williams? You look like you've seen a ghost." If only he knew. "Family emergency. Can you handle the paperwork?" Martinez nodded, and Doc was already moving, his phone buzzing with rapid-fire secure messages as the veteran network activated like antibodies. Responding to an infection. Across town in Coronado, Lieutenant Commander Jake "Reaper" Sullivan was cutting his daughter Emma's pancakes into perfect squares when his phone delivered the same coded alert. His wife Jessica looked up from feeding their youngest son, noting the change in Jake's expression. "Honey?" she asked, but Jake was already reading the message thread exploding across his screen. Frost. Monitoring police comms. Multiple units. En route to McDonald's. Padre. Confirmed location. Maria Gonzalez placed the call. She's solid. Doc. ETA 5 minutes. Need overwatch and extraction protocols. Jake's hands were steady as he set down his fork, but Jessica could see the combat. Commander emerging behind his eyes. After 15 years of marriage to a SEAL, she recognized the signs. "Jake, talk to me." "It's Tyler," he said quietly, kissing Emma's forehead before standing. "Someone hurt Tyler." Jessica's face tightened. She'd watched her husband carry guilt over Tyler's situation for 2 years, had seen him make anonymous donations to veteran shelters and call in favors trying to track down their former teammate. How bad? Bad enough. Jake was already moving toward his home office, where equipment waited that wasn't exactly standard civilian gear. "I need to go." "Your career?" Doesn't matter. The finality in his voice stopped her protests. This wasn't a discussion, it was a notification. Tyler would come for me. In a cramped apartment overlooking Mission Beach, Chief Petty Officer Alex Frost Jensen's fingers flew across 3 different keyboards simultaneously. Multiple monitors displayed traffic camera feeds, police radio frequencies, and cell tower data as he infiltrated San Diego's digital infrastructure with the casual ease of someone who'd spent years conducting electronic warfare against enemy nations. His secure chat exploded with activity. Reaper status report. Frost, 2 units on scene, ambulance dispatched. Target is conscious but injured. Doc, I'm first responder on the ambulance, maintaining cover. Padre, shelter network is mobilized. Safe houses ready. Reaper, electronic surveillance. Frost, working on it. Give me 5 minutes to own their entire communications grid. Frost's pale eyes reflected the blue glow of his screens as he carved through firewalls like tissue paper. The skills that had made him invaluable for infiltrating terrorist communications networks in Afghanistan translated perfectly to civilian law enforcement systems. Within minutes, he had access to police dispatch, their internal databases, and the traffic cameras surrounding the McDonald's. What he saw made his blood run cold. Frost, we have a problem, running facial recognition on the responding officers. One of them is Brad Hutchins. Multiple excessive force complaints in his file. Reaper, the one who tased Tyler? Frost, affirmative. Gets worse, cross-referencing with other databases. Hutchins has been flagged in 3 separate incidents involving veterans in the past 6 months. Doc, arriving on scene now. This wasn't random. Across the city at St. Vincent's shelter, Father Miguel Santos finished reading the secure message on his encrypted phone and immediately began making calls. The former Marine chaplain maintained a network of safe houses, sympathetic civilians, and resources that could hide an army if necessary. Mrs. Chen, he said into his phone, speaking to the grandmother who ran a boarding house in Hillcrest. I need 3 rooms ready within the hour. Yes, it's that serious. Another call. Another. Resource activated. The network Tyler didn't even know existed was mobilizing with military precision. Every member understanding that when one of their own was targeted, they all were. Doc's ambulance pulled up to the McDonald's just as additional police units arrived. Through the restaurant's windows, he could see Tyler sitting on the floor, conscious but clearly disoriented. Maria knelt beside him, her protective stance telling Doc everything he needed to know about her character. Stay calm, stay professional, Doc muttered to himself as he grabbed his medical kit. Years of treating wounded warriors in combat zones had taught him to compartmentalize, but seeing Tyler, his brother, reduced to this broke something inside his chest. As he entered the restaurant, Doc's trained eyes took in the scene. Tyler was alert, but showing signs of taser exposure. Muscle, tremors, disorientation, possible head trauma from the fall. Officer Hutchins stood to one side, his body language defensive and aggressive. His partner, Officer Drake, looked disturbed by what had transpired. Paramedic, Doc announced, kneeling beside Tyler. Their eyes met, and Doc saw recognition flicker. Briefly before Tyler's expression went carefully neutral. "Sir, I'm going to check you over," Doc said loudly enough for the officers to hear. Then much quieter, "Brother, we're here. The whole team is coming." Tyler's eyes widened slightly. For 2 years he'd believed he was alone, abandoned by a system that had discarded him. The knowledge that his teammates hadn't forgotten, that they were mobilizing, hit him harder than the taser had. Doc's examination was thorough and professional, but his secure earpiece crackled with updates from the team. Frost, "I'm tracking the arresting officer's communications. He's already filed a report claiming Tyler was aggressive and threatening." Reaper, ETA 10 minutes. What's Tyler's status? Doc, stable but shaken, definitely targeted. The officer's behavior doesn't match standard protocols. Padre, media is starting to pick up the story. Maria's video is already on social media. As Doc worked, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. Officer Hutchins was on his radio, but the conversation didn't sound like standard police protocols. The words "Doc caught," "package secured," "notify the colonel" sounded more like military communications. "Tyler," Doc whispered as he checked pupil response, "this goes deeper than police brutality. Someone wanted you exposed." Tyler's jaw tightened. Blackwood. The name hung between them like a curse. Colonel Richard Blackwood, their former commanding officer, the man whose war crimes Tyler had tried to report. The man who'd orchestrated Tyler's destruction. Doc's earpiece crackled. Frost. Multiple encrypted communications just spiked. Military-grade encryption. Someone just got very interested in today's events. "We need to move you," Doc said quietly. "Hospital first, then extraction." "I won't run anymore," Tyler replied, his voice gaining strength. "I'm tired of being invisible." "You're not invisible, brother. You never were. We just had to find you." As the ambulance prepared to transport Tyler to the hospital, none of them realized they were walking into a trap 2 years in the making. Colonel Blackwood had been waiting for Tyler to surface, and when he did, the full weight of institutional corruption would come crashing down on anyone who tried to help him. But the veteran network had awakened, and for the first time in 2 years, Tyler Mitchell wasn't facing the enemy alone. The ambulance doors slammed shut with a metallic finality that echoed through the McDonald's parking lot. As Doc secured Tyler for transport, his earpiece buzzed with urgent updates from the team, converging on San Diego like scattered pieces of a tactical puzzle reassembling itself. "Frost, talk to me," Doc whispered into his collar mic while checking Tyler's blood pressure. "Multiple players moving," came the calm reply through his earpiece. "Reaper's 20 minutes out. I've got eyes on the hospital through their security system. But we've got company. 3 black SUVs just left the federal building downtown, heading your direction." Tyler's eyes focused sharply on Doc. "Federal? Could be. Could be contractors." Doc's jaw tightened. Either way, someone made calls fast. Across town, Detective Sarah Chen pulled her unmarked Crown Vic into the McDonald's parking lot just as the ambulance disappeared around the corner. She'd been tracking patterns of veteran mistreatment for 8 months, and the emergency call that came across the scanner had triggered every instinct she'd developed during her military police days. Inside the restaurant, the scene told a story she'd seen too many times. Overturned chairs, coffee spilled across the floor, and the lingering tension of violence poorly justified. Maria Gonzalez was cleaning up with shaking hands, while Officer Hutchins completed his paperwork with the mechanical precision of someone following a script. "Detective Chen, SDPD, she announced, showing her badge to Officer Drake. "I need to speak with witnesses." Hutchins looked up sharply. "Detective, this is just a standard incident. Homeless subject became aggressive, standard de-escalation." Protocols were employed. Sarah's eyes catalogued the scene. No overturned tables suggesting a struggle, no broken glass indicating thrown objects. Just a man-sized outline on the floor, marked by scattered personal belongings, and a small pool of blood where Tyler's head had struck the tile. "Standard," she repeated flatly. "Walk me through it." As Hutchins recited his version of events, Sarah noticed Maria watching from behind the counter. The young woman's eyes held the particular combination of fear and outrage that Sarah recognized from her own cases, the look of someone who'd witnessed injustice and felt powerless to stop. At 15 miles north, Jake Sullivan's pickup truck ate up the highway toward San Diego. His gear bag in the back contained items that would be difficult to explain to civilian authorities. tactical communications equipment, body armor, and weapons that weren't exactly standard civilian firearms. His phone buzzed constantly with updates. Frost. Hospital security compromised. Multiple unknown vehicles positioning around the building. Padre. Safe houses ready. Underground routes mapped. Doc. Tyler stable, but they're rushing him to isolation ward. Says it's for his protection. Jake's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. Isolation meant controlled access, limited witnesses, and easy elimination if necessary. His phone rang, a direct call from an encrypted number he recognized. Reaper! Jake, it's Frost. We have a serious problem. I'm monitoring police communications, and I just intercepted something that doesn't belong on civilian frequencies. Explain. Military encryption protocols. Someone with serious clearance just activated assets in San Diego. This isn't about a homeless veteran anymore. They're treating this like a national security incident. Jake's mind raced through implications. Blackwood. Has to be. The encryption signatures match Titan Defense Corporation's government contracts. They've got people embedded in law enforcement. In a conference room 30 floors above downtown, San Diego, Colonel Richard Blackwood stood before a wall of monitors displaying satellite feeds, traffic cameras, and personnel files. The man who'd once ordered the execution of Syrian civilians now wore an expensive suit and the title of Security Director for Titan Defense Corporation. His audience consisted of 3 Titan executives and a representative from the Department of Defense. Gentlemen, Blackwood said, his voice carrying the same cold authority it had in Syria, Tyler Mitchell represents a clear threat to ongoing operations. His testimony could compromise multiple classified programs and cost the company billions in government contracts. The legal ramifications, one executive began, are manageable. Blackwood cut him off. Mitchell is a homeless veteran with documented PTSD. His credibility is already compromised. We simply need to ensure he remains unavailable for testimony. The DoD representative leaned forward. What are you proposing? Psychiatric hold. Extended treatment at a private facility. Medical records can be very persuasive in establishing mental incompetence. On the monitors, Tyler's ambulance was a red dot moving toward the hospital. Other dots, Blackwood's assets, were converging. On the same location, back at the McDonald's, Sarah Chen finished interviewing the handful of witnesses, while Hutchins grew increasingly agitated. Each testimony contradicted his report in small but significant ways. The homeless man hadn't been aggressive. He'd complied with requests. The tasing had been unprovoked. Detective, Maria approached hesitantly, there's something you should see. She handed Sarah her phone, displaying the video she'd recorded. The footage was clear, damning, and completely contradicted Hutchins' official report. Ms. Gonzalez, I need you to forward this to my phone immediately, and then I need you to disappear for a few hours. I can't leave work. You can't help if you're dead, Sarah said bluntly. Send the video to every news outlet you can think of, then find somewhere safe to stay. Her phone buzzed with an encrypted message from a number she didn't recognize. Detective Chen, we need to talk. Ghost's life depends on it. A friend. At the hospital, Doc rolled Tyler through sliding glass doors that whispered shut behind them like a trap closing. The emergency room buzzed with the controlled chaos of medical professionals, but Doc's trained eyes caught details others missed. Too many people in suits for a normal day, security guards positioned at strategic choke points, and cameras that tracked their movement with uncommon interest. Doc, Tyler whispered as they moved toward the examination room. I remember you said Blackwood had connections, but this feels like more than corruption. It is more, Doc replied quietly. Frost is tracking communications, military-grade encryption, federal resources, private contractors. You didn't just witness war crimes, Tyler. You witnessed something that could bring down an entire network. Tyler's hand found Doc's arm. "My testimony is why they want you silenced permanently." Doc's voice carried grim certainty. "But here's the thing, brother. You're not alone anymore. The whole team is coming, and we've got friends you don't know about." As if summoned by his words, Sarah Chen walked through the emergency room doors, her detective's badge visible, but her hand resting on her service weapon. Behind her, Father Miguel Santos entered through a different entrance, his clerical collar, opening doors that might otherwise remain closed. "Dr. Williams?" Sarah approached Doc with professional courtesy that carried an undercurrent of urgency. "I'm Detective Chen. I believe we have a mutual interest in Mr. Mitchell's welfare." Doc studied her carefully, military bearing, controlled movements, eyes that missed nothing. "You sent the message." "I did, and right now we have about 10 minutes before this hospital becomes very unfriendly territory." Through the emergency room windows, black SUVs were pulling into the parking lot with the coordinated precision of a military operation. Tyler's rescue was about to become something much more dangerous, a battle between those sworn to protect the truth and those willing to kill to bury it. The black SUVs disgorged men in dark suits who moved with military precision through the hospital's main entrance. Doc's earpiece crackled with Frost's urgent warning. Multiple hostiles entering the building. They're carrying federal credentials, but the IDs don't match any known agencies. Tyler was being wheeled into examination, room 7, when Sarah Chen intercepted the gurney, her badge clearing a path through curious medical staff. "Mr. Mitchell needs immediate protection," she told the attending physician. "This is related to an ongoing federal investigation." "Detective, I need to examine the patient," the doctor began. "You need to keep him alive," Sarah cut him off, her voice carrying an authority that made the medical team step back. "Room 7 has windows, 2 exposed. Move him to the secure ward." Father Miguel Santos approached from the opposite direction, his clerical collar opening doors that would otherwise require paperwork. "Detective Chen? I'm Father Santos. I believe we spoke on the phone." Sarah nodded grimly. The priest's reputation preceded him, former Marine chaplain, advocate for veterans, and according to her research, someone with surprising connections in both military and civilian circles. "Father, I need you to coordinate civilian evacuation. Things are about to get complicated." Tyler struggled to sit up on the gurney, his body still fighting the after-effects of the taser. "Doc, get out of here. All of you. This isn't your fight." "Ngim, brother," Doc said quietly, checking Tyler's IV line, while his eyes tracked the suited men entering the emergency room. "We've been fighting this war for 2 years. We just didn't know where the battlefield was." Sarah's phone buzzed with an encrypted message. Frost. "Hospital security feeds show 12 hostiles inside the building. They're moving with tactical precision toward your location. Reaper ETA 8 minutes. We need to move. Now," Sarah announced. But the suited men were already spreading through the emergency room, their credentials causing medical staff to step aside. The lead figure, tall, silver-haired, with the bearing of someone accustomed to absolute authority, approached the nurse's station with the confidence of a man who owned the building. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Tyler's blood ran cold as he recognized the voice issuing commands. "Where is Tyler Mitchell?" "I'm Dr. Richard Blackwood, Department of Veterans Affairs. Mr. Mitchell is my patient." "Colonel," Tyler whispered, the word carrying 2 years of rage and betrayal. Doc's hand moved instinctively toward the concealed sidearm he wasn't supposed to carry on ambulance duty. "Sarah, we're out of time." The detective was already in motion, wheeling Tyler's gurney toward a service corridor, while Father Santos provided cover by engaging the hospital's administrative staff in urgent conversation about chaplain services. Sarah's earpiece, hastily provided by an encrypted message drop, crackled with Frost's voice. Back corridor, 20 meters ahead, leads to service elevator. I'm looping their security cameras to show empty hallways. As they moved through the hospital's maze of corridors, Tyler fought through his disorientation to process what was happening. Sarah, Detective Chen, why are you helping me? Because I've been tracking patterns, she replied, navigating the gurney around a corner. Veterans disappearing after encounters with law enforcement, medical records altered, death certificates filed for people who were very much alive when they entered the system. They reached the service elevator as Tyler's mind began connecting. Dots. How many? 17 confirmed cases in the past 18 months. All veterans with classified backgrounds, all with stories about overseas operations that didn't make it into official reports. The elevator doors opened to reveal Jake Sullivan, still wearing civilian clothes, but with the unmistakable bearing of a combat commander. His eyes met Tyler's, and 2 years of guilt and determination flashed between them. Ghost, Jake said simply. Reaper. Tyler's voice carried relief, anger, and something approaching hope. You shouldn't be here. Try and stop me. Jake stepped aside as Doc wheeled the gurney into the elevator. Frost has the building's electronic systems under control, but those aren't federal agents downstairs. They're Titan defense contractors with forged credentials. Sarah's eyebrows rose. Titan Defense? Private military corporation, Jake explained as the elevator descended toward the parking garage. They specialize in government contracts that require flexible interpretations of international law. Father Santos joined them on the elevator, his face grim. I've been documenting their activities for months. They've been systematically eliminating witnesses to overseas operations that could compromise their contracts. Tyler struggled to process the implications. You're saying Blackwood isn't just covering up war crimes. He's running an elimination program. 17 dead veterans suggest that's exactly what he's doing, Sarah confirmed. Your testimony isn't just about Syria. It's about a pattern of operations that violate everything this country claims to stand for. The elevator reached the parking garage as Frost's voice crackled through their earpieces. Multiple vehicles moving to intercept. They've realized you're not in the room anymore. Reaper, you've got 30 seconds before they lock down the building. Jake was already moving, his tactical experience taking over. Doc, get Tyler to the van. Sarah, you're driving. Father, coordinate with Frost for safe house locations. Wait, Tyler said, grabbing Jake's arm. My testimony, if I disappear now, Blackwood wins. Those 17 veterans died for nothing. If you die now, everyone dies for nothing, Jake replied. We get you safe, then we figure out how to make him pay. As they reached the parking level, the sound of boots echoing through the stairwells told them Blackwood's team had found their trail. The van that waited, unmarked, armored, with Frost's electronic countermeasures humming quietly in the background, represented more than escape. It represented the difference between abandoning a brother and honoring the oath they'd all sworn. Tyler looked at each of them. Doc, whose steady hands had saved countless lives. Jake, whose leadership had brought them all home from impossible missions. Sarah, who'd risked her career for justice. Father Santos, who'd turned his faith into action. 17 veterans, he said quietly, as Doc helped him into the van. We owe them the truth. We owe them justice, Jake corrected, sliding the van door shut, as Blackwood's voice echoed through the parking garage, shouting orders to seal all exits. The van pulled out into San Diego traffic as Frost's electronic warfare turned every traffic light in their favor, and every security camera in the city temporarily blind. But they all knew this was just the beginning. Blackwood had revealed his hand, and the stakes were higher than any of them had imagined. The van pulled into an abandoned warehouse in the industrial district as rain began to fall across San Diego's skyline. Frost had chosen the location carefully. Multiple exit routes, minimal electronic surveillance, and enough concrete between them and the outside world to block most tracking signals. But Tyler could see the tension in Jake's shoulders as they established their temporary base of operations. "Talk to me, Frost," Jake said into his headset as Doc helped Tyler onto a makeshift medical cot. "It's not good," came the reply through. "They're encrypted communications. Blackwood's people have locked down the hospital and are conducting floor-by-floor searches. They're also running facial recognition software on every traffic camera in the city." Sarah Chen paced the warehouse floor, her phone pressed to her ear as she spoke in rapid, urgent tones to contacts within the SDPD. When she finished the call, her expression was grim. "Captain Torres wants to see me in her office. Now." Sarah's voice carried the weight of someone who recognized an ultimatum. "My investigation into the veteran disappearances has been temporarily suspended pending review. It's happening faster than we anticipated," Father Santos said, consulting his own secure phone. "3 of my shelter locations just received surprise health department inspections. They're shutting down our safe houses one by one." Tyler struggled to sit up, his vision still swimming from the taser exposure. "They're not just hunting me. They're dismantling your entire network, which means they've been watching us for longer than we realized," Jake said grimly. He turned to a laptop where Frost's surveillance feeds showed multiple angles of the city. "Frost, what's our exposure?" "Complete," came the stark reply. "Facial recognition hits on all of us. They know who's helping Tyler, where we live, where we work. Reaper, they've got surveillance teams outside your house." Jake's face went ashen. "Jessica and the kids?" "I've already contacted base security. Your family is being moved to a safe location under the pretense of a training exercise." Doc finished checking Tyler's vitals and joined the group around the communications setup. "This is too coordinated, too fast. They had contingency plans, ready for when Tyler surfaced." "Because they've been waiting," Tyler said, pieces of a 2-year puzzle finally clicking into place. "The homeless camps I stayed in, the shelters I used, they were being watched. Blackwood was waiting for me to lead him to anyone who might." "Help me." Sarah's phone rang, and Captain Torres's name appeared on the screen. Sarah stared at it for 3 rings before answering. "Chen. Detective, you need to come in immediately. There are federal agents here asking questions about your activities today." Sarah met Tyler's eyes as she responded, "Captain, I'm investigating a potential civil rights violation. The use of force report doesn't match witness testimony. The case is being transferred to federal jurisdiction. You're ordered to cease all investigative activities and report for debriefing." Sarah ended the call and immediately began pulling the battery from her phone. "They're not even pretending anymore. Federal jurisdiction means Blackwood's people can operate without local oversight." Father Santos received a call on his secure line, and after a brief conversation, his face darkened considerably. "Maria Gonzalez has disappeared. Her manager said she left work early and hasn't been seen since. Her apartment is empty." The warehouse fell silent except for the sound of rain pattering against metal roofing. Doc was the first to voice what they were all thinking: they have her. Tyler's hands clenched into fists despite his weakened state. "She was just trying to help me. She didn't ask for any of this." "None of us did," Jake replied, but his voice carried determination rather than resignation. "Frost, what kind of timeline are we looking at?" "Based on movement patterns, I estimate 6 hours before they locate this warehouse, but that's assuming they don't have assets we haven't identified yet." Sarah stood near a grimy window, watching. Unmarked vehicles cruise slowly through the industrial district. "There's something else. During my investigation, I found evidence that the 17 dead veterans weren't random targets. They all had one thing in common." "What?" Tyler asked. "They all served under classified operations commanded by officers who now work for private military contractors. Titan Defense, Aegis Solutions, Black River Security, companies that have billions in government contracts. Doc's medical training made him the first to understand the implication. You're talking about industrial-scale war crime cover-up. I'm talking about a business model, Sarah corrected. These companies get contracts by promising results that regular military can't deliver because of legal constraints. They operate in grey areas, eliminate witnesses, and profit from activities that would land a regular soldier in prison. Tyler's voice was barely above a whisper. How many operations? How many witnesses? Based on contract timelines and personnel records I could access, potentially hundreds of incidents over the past decade. The 17 dead veterans might just be the ones who made it home alive. Father Santos received another call, and this time his face went pale. They've arrested 3 of my volunteers on trumped-up immigration charges. Anyone who's helped veterans in the past 6 months is being targeted. Jake's tactical mind was already working through scenarios. They're not just after Tyler anymore. They're dismantling the entire veteran support network to ensure no one else comes forward. Which means running isn't an option, Tyler said, struggling to his feet despite Doc's protests. Every minute we hide, more people get hurt. Tyler, you're in no condition to... I'm in the condition I need to be in. Tyler's voice carried the steel that had gotten him through 15 years of special operations. Doc, how long before I can function normally? Another 12 hours minimum. The neurological effects of the taser. How long before I can fight? Doc and Jake exchanged looks. They'd seen that expression before, in combat zones where Tyler had pushed through injuries that would have sidelined ordinary soldiers. Now, if necessary, Doc admitted reluctantly. Sarah turned from the window, her decision made. Captain Torres is dirty. Has to be, for this to work so smoothly. Which means I'm officially a fugitive the moment I don't show up for that debriefing. Welcome to the club, Jake said grimly. Frost, we need extraction options. Working on it, but they're systematically closing off routes. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it fast. Tyler looked around at the people who'd risked everything to save him. His brothers from the teams, a detective who'd chosen justice over career, a priest who'd turned faith into action. Tomorrow, Blackwood would move Tyler to a private facility where accidents were easily arranged and records conveniently lost. There's only one way this ends, Tyler said quietly. We stop running and start fighting back. Outside, the rain continued to fall as black SUVs tightened their search pattern around the industrial district. The trap was closing, and everyone in the warehouse knew that their next decision would determine whether 17 dead veterans would be joined by more names on Blackwood's list. The rain hammered against the warehouse roof like automatic weapons fire as Jake spread tactical maps across a makeshift table. The decision had been made. They weren't running anymore. If Blackwood wanted a war, they'd give him one on terms he didn't expect. The facility where they're holding Maria is here. Frost's voice crackled through the secure communications. Satellite images appeared on his laptop screen, showing a nondescript medical building in Kearney Mesa. Titan Defense Corporation leases the top 3 floors under the cover of a psychiatric research facility. Tyler studied the building's layout while Doc checked his medical equipment. Despite his protests, Tyler was far from combat ready. The taser had done more damage than he'd admitted. His hand still trembled slightly, and his coordination was off, but his mind was sharp, and 15 years of special operations experience told him they had one advantage Blackwood didn't expect. They were willing to sacrifice everything. Security? Jake asked. Professional. Former military, probably. Ex-special forces. Motion sensors, cameras, the works. But here's the interesting part. They're not expecting an assault. The building's defenses are designed to keep people in, not out. Sarah Chen worked frantically at her own laptop, downloading files from the SDPD database before her access was revoked. I'm pulling everything I can on Titan defense contracts, the missing veterans, financial records. If we're doing this, we need evidence that can't be buried. Father Santos coordinated with what remained of his network, arranging civilian support and safe houses for the aftermath. The community is with us, he reported. Word is spreading about what happened to Tyler, and people are angry. Maria's story, her willingness to help a homeless veteran, it's resonating. Jake's phone buzzed with an encrypted message from base command. His face darkened as he read. Official word just came down. I'm being recalled to Coronado for consultation regarding civilian activities. They're going to court-martial me the moment I step foot on base. Then don't, Tyler said simply. None of you signed up for this. Walk away now and shut up, Ghost, Doc interrupted, loading medical supplies into a tactical bag. We've had this conversation. Leave no one behind means everyone comes home, even if it destroys your careers, your families. Jake looked up from the tactical maps, and Tyler saw the same expression he'd worn in Syria when they'd faced impossible odds against a superior force. My daughter asked me yesterday what a hero was. I told her it was someone who does the right thing even when it's hard. Time to prove I wasn't lying. The warehouse door opened, and a figure in rain-soaked clothes entered, Maria Gonzalez, supported by two of Father Santos's volunteers. She was pale, shaken, but very much alive. Maria! Sarah rushed to help her to a chair. We thought they had you. They tried, Maria said, her voice steady despite obvious exhaustion. Men in suits came to my apartment, said they needed to ask questions about this morning. But Mrs. Delgado next door saw them coming and warned me. I went out the back window. Tyler felt a weight lift from his chest. You should have stayed hidden. No, Maria said firmly. I saw what they did to you. I recorded it. And now No, I'm not the only one they've hurt. She looked around the warehouse at the assembled group. Father Santos told me about the other veterans, the ones who died. It's dangerous for you here, Doc warned. They'll be looking. Let them look, Maria interrupted. I'm tired of being invisible, tired of watching people get hurt while everyone pretends not to see. Frost's voice cut through their conversation. Movement on the perimeter. 3 vehicles, professional spacing. They've found us. Jake was already in motion, his tactical training taking over. How long? 5 minutes, maybe less. Options? Back exit leads to the storm drain system. I can guide you through the underground tunnels, but you'll be on foot. Tyler struggled to stand, Doc immediately moving to support him. The facility assault happens tonight, Jake said with finality. We extract, regroup at the secondary location, and hit them before they can relocate Maria or any other evidence. Jake, Tyler's not ready for a combat operation, Doc protested. Then he stays back and coordinates. Jake began packing gear with efficient precision. This isn't about what any of us are ready for anymore. It's about stopping a machine that's been killing veterans for 2 years. Sarah finished downloading the last of her files and began destroying her laptop's hard drive. I've uploaded everything to encrypted cloud storage. If something happens to us, at least the evidence survives. The sound of vehicle doors slamming echoed through the warehouse district. Frost's voice carried new urgency. Multiple teams moving to surround the building. Professional deployment. These aren't local cops. Father Santos helped Maria to her feet. The tunnels will take us to the old mission. From there, we can reach the McDonald's. The McDonald's? Tyler asked. Symbolic, Jake explained, shouldering his gear bag. Where this started is where we make our stand. Plus, Frost has already hardened the location's electronics and the community knows the ground. As they moved toward the back exit, Tyler grabbed Jake's arm. If this goes bad, it won't. If it does, Tyler insisted, Jessica and the kids need to know you died fighting for something that mattered. Jake's expression softened for a moment. "Brother, if we don't do this, how many more families lose someone? How many more veterans die in the shadows?" The warehouse's back door opened onto a storm drain entrance, barely visible in the rain-soaked darkness. One by one, they descended into San Diego's underground, leaving behind their old lives and embracing a mission that would either expose the truth or destroy them all. As Tyler lowered himself into the tunnels, his body protesting every movement, he thought about the 17 veterans who died trying to tell their stories, about Maria, whose simple act of kindness had revealed a conspiracy, about his brothers who'd risked everything because they believed some oaths transcended politics and career survival. Above them, Blackwood's teams breached the warehouse, finding only empty computers and the lingering smell of determination. The hunt was about to become a war, and this time the hunters were about to discover what happened when they targeted people who'd sworn to never leave anyone behind. In the darkness of the storm drains, Tyler smiled for the first time in 2 years. He was no longer invisible, no longer alone, and no longer running. Whatever came next, 17 dead veterans would finally have their voices heard. The McDonald's at 5th and Broadway had been transformed into something that would have made their old commanding officers proud, if those officers hadn't been trying to kill them. Jake coordinated the defensive preparations with the precision of someone who'd planned operations in Afghanistan, while Frost turned the restaurant into an electronic fortress that could have intercepted satellite communications. Tyler sat in the same corner booth where his ordeal had begun 12 hours earlier, but now Maria's simple act of kindness had evolved into something approaching a revolution. The dining area buzzed with activity as Father Santos coordinated. With community leaders, Sarah Chen prepared evidence packets for simultaneous release to news outlets, and Doc established a medical station behind the counter. "Perimeter report," Jake spoke into his headset while studying tablet displays of the surrounding area. "We've got company," Frost replied from his overwatch position in the apartment building across the street. 12 vehicles so far, mixed, local and federal plates. Professional spacing, multiple agencies represented. Through the restaurant's windows, Tyler could see the growing crowd of supporters gathering despite the rain. Word had spread through social media faster than Blackwood's people could contain it. Maria's video, combined with social media posts from other veterans who'd been harassed, had created a narrative that was spinning beyond anyone's control. "Media presence?" Sarah asked, monitoring news feeds on her laptop. "Channel 8, Channel 10 and CNN are setting up outside the perimeter," Frost reported. "Social media engagement is through the roof. Chaksa Justice for Ghost is trending nationally." Tyler winced at the hashtag. "I never wanted to be a symbol." "Sometimes symbols choose us, brother," Doc said, checking Tyler's vitals one more time. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck driven by a taser," Tyler replied. But his coordination was improving, and the tremors had largely stopped, but functional. A black sedan pulled up to the police perimeter, and Colonel Richard Blackwood stepped out into the rain. Even from a distance, Tyler could see the man who'd destroyed his life, who'd ordered the execution of civilians, who'd systematically eliminated witnesses to protect his corporate contracts. "He's here," Tyler said quietly. Jake's expression hardened as he spotted Blackwood through the windows. "Good. Time to end this." Sarah's phone rang, Captain Torres calling for the 5th time in 2 hours. This time, Sarah answered. "Chen, detective, you need to end this now. There are federal agents demanding access to that building, and I can't hold them off much longer." "Captain, are you familiar with the name Titan Defense Corporation?" A pause. "Sarah, don't. Because I've documented 17 veteran deaths connected to their operations, men and women who served their country and were murdered to protect corporate profits. You're destroying your career. I'm saving my soul. Sarah replied, ending the call and removing the battery from her phone. Father Santos approached their tactical huddle, his face grim but determined. The community is mobilizing. Veterans from across the county are heading here, despite the weather. But I'm also getting reports of harassment. Families of veterans being questioned, shelter volunteers being detained on trumped-up charges. They're trying to isolate us, Jake observed, cut off support before the media narrative gets completely away from them. Frost's voice crackled through their earpieces. Multiple law enforcement agencies are staging outside, but they're not coordinating. I'm monitoring their communications. There's confusion about jurisdiction and authority. Blackwood's people are trying to run the show, but the locals don't like being pushed around. Through the windows, they could see the crowd growing, despite police attempts to establish a perimeter. Veterans in wheelchairs, families holding signs supporting Tyler, community leaders giving interviews to news crews. What had started as a simple assault case was becoming something much larger. "Tyler," Maria said, joining him at the booth, "there's something you should see." She handed him her phone, showing a live stream from the gathering outside. An elderly veteran in a VFW jacket was speaking to a news reporter, his voice carrying clearly through the rain. This young man served his country for 15 years. Decorated, Navy SEAL, and when he tried to report war crimes, they destroyed him, made him homeless, took his benefits, left him to die on the streets. But Maria Gonzalez saw him as human, fed him, treated him with dignity, and when the police brutalized him for no reason, she stood up. "That's what Americans do. We protect our own." Tyler's throat tightened as he watched more veterans step forward to share their own stories of bureaucratic betrayal, medical neglect, and systematic abandonment. Jake's tactical display showed the law enforcement deployment. "They've got us surrounded, but they can't move without creating a massacre on live television. Blackwood's running out of options. Which makes him dangerous," Doc warned. "Cornered animals do unpredictable things." Sarah finished uploading the last of her evidence files to secure servers around the world. "Everything's out there now. Financial records showing payments to eliminate witnesses, communication intercepts proving coordination between Titan Defense and corrupt officials, medical records of the 17 dead veterans." "How long before it goes public?" Tyler asked. "It already has," Frost reported. "Major news outlets are running preliminary reports. Congressional representatives are calling for investigations. Stock market has suspended trading on Titan Defense Corporation." Outside, Blackwood was speaking with officials from multiple agencies, his gestures becoming increasingly agitated as his control of the situation slipped away. Tyler could see the man's desperation growing. 2 years of careful planning was unraveling in real time. "He's going to try something," Tyler said, his combat instincts reading Blackwood's body language. "This isn't a man who accepts defeat." Jake nodded grimly. "Everyone stays sharp. We're not home free until—" Frost's urgent voice cut through the communications. "Sniper teams moving into position on surrounding buildings. This isn't crowd control. They're preparing for an assault." The McDonald's fell silent except for the sound of rain against windows and the distant chants of supporters outside. 17 dead veterans had brought them to this moment, where the choice between truth and power would be decided not in courtrooms or congressional hearings, but in a fast-food restaurant where a young woman had shown kindness to a forgotten warrior. Tyler looked around at his brothers, at Sarah Chen, who'd risked her career for justice, at Maria Gonzalez, whose simple humanity had exposed a conspiracy, at Father Santos, whose faith had been tested and proven strong. Whatever came next, they would face it together. "No one left behind," he said quietly, and heard the oath echoed by every voice in the room. The siege entered its 3rd hour as emergency news bulletins flashed across screens nationwide. Inside the McDonald's, Tyler watched congressional representatives, arrive at the police perimeter despite the late hour, their presence adding political weight to what Blackwood had hoped to handle quietly. Senator Patricia Williams just stepped out of that vehicle, Sarah observed, pointing through the rain-streaked windows. Chair of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee. This is becoming very public, very fast. Frost's voice crackled through, their earpieces with updates. CNN is running a special report. They've got former Pentagon officials on record confirming that Titan Defense Corporation has been operating without proper oversight. The stock market bloodbath is spreading to other military contractors. Tyler's phone, a secure device Frost had provided, buzzed with an incoming call from an unknown number. He looked to Jake, who nodded. Tyler Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell, this is Congresswoman Martinez from the House Armed Services Committee. I'm standing outside with Senator Williams. We'd like to take your testimony personally. Tyler's grip tightened on the phone. Congresswoman, there are sniper teams positioned on surrounding buildings. Colonel Blackwood has made it clear he doesn't intend for me to testify to anyone. Mr. Mitchell, you have my word that Congress will protect you. We have federal marshals en route to secure the area. Through the windows, Tyler could see heated discussions between Blackwood and newly arrived federal officials. The colonel's carefully orchestrated operation was collapsing under the weight of public scrutiny and political pressure. Jake, Tyler said, what's your read? Blackwood's losing control, Jake replied, studying the tactical situation. Too many agencies, too much media coverage. He can't eliminate witnesses on live television. Doc approached with a fresh medical assessment. Your vitals are stable and the neurological effects have mostly cleared. You're as ready as you're going to be. Maria joined them at the booth, her phone showing social media feeds that had exploded with support. Tyler, there are vigils being held in 12 cities. Veterans are coming forward everywhere, telling their stories about harassment and intimidation. Father Santos received a call on his secure line, and his expression brightened for the first time in hours. 3 of my volunteers have been released. The immigration charges were dropped without explanation. Public pressure, Sarah explained. When you operate in shadows, exposure is your biggest enemy. Frost's voice carried new urgency. Movement. At Blackwood's position, he's separating from the main group, heading toward a black SUV with tinted windows. Tyler stood, his body finally responding normally after hours of recovery. He's running, or preparing for something desperate, Jake warned. Frost, maintain eyes on him. Tyler's phone rang again, this time from Senator Williams directly. Mr. Mitchell, we're prepared to take your testimony right now on live television with full congressional protection. DC, Tyler looked around the McDonald's at the people who'd risked everything to reach this moment. Maria, whose simple kindness had exposed a conspiracy. Sarah, who'd chosen justice over career. His brothers from the teams, who'd honored their oath. Father Santos, whose faith had translated into action. Senator, I'll testify, but I want it live-streamed to every platform simultaneously. No edited versions, no selective quotes. The full truth. Agreed. We're setting up equipment now. Within minutes, news crews had positioned cameras and lights, while congressional staff coordinated security. Tyler found himself sitting at a table hastily assembled in the McDonald's dining area, facing cameras that would broadcast his words to millions of viewers. Senator Williams took her seat across from him, her expression grave. Mr. Mitchell, you are under oath. Please state your full name and service record for the congressional record. Tyler James Mitchell, Lieutenant, United States Navy, SEAL Team 6, 15 years of active service, honorably discharged after attempting to report war crimes committed by my commanding officer. The questions came methodically, building a case that would destroy not just Blackwood, but the entire network of corruption he represented. Tyler described the civilian executions in Syria, Blackwood's explicit orders, and the systematic retaliation that had followed his attempts to report the crimes. "And Colonel Blackwood's current position?" Senator Williams asked. "Security. Director for Titan Defense Corporation, where he's been systematically eliminating veterans who witnessed classified operations that violated international law." "How many veterans are we talking about, Mr. Mitchell?" Tyler's voice carried the weight of 17 funerals he'd never been able to attend. Detective Chen's investigation documented 17 confirmed deaths, men and women who served their country and were murdered to protect corporate profits. Outside, the crowd had swelled to hundreds despite the rain and late hour. Veterans, families, community supporters, all bearing witness to testimony that was reshaping the narrative around veteran treatment and corporate accountability. Frost's voice crackled through Tyler's nearly invisible earpiece. "Blackwood's SUV is moving, heading away from the scene, but I'm tracking 3 other vehicles following predetermined routes. This feels like an extraction protocol." Jake, monitoring from his position near the windows, spoke quietly into his radio. "All units, prepare for movement. Target may be attempting to flee jurisdiction." Senator Williams continued her questioning, each answer from Tyler adding another nail to Blackwood's coffin. The live stream had drawn over 2 million viewers, with social media engagement breaking platform records. "Mr. Mitchell, in your professional opinion, how extensive is this conspiracy?" "Senator, based on what I've witnessed and what Detective Chen has documented, this goes beyond individual corruption. It's a business model. Private military contractors profit from operations that regular military can't conduct because of legal constraints. When witnesses emerge, they're eliminated. And you believe Colonel Blackwood has been personally directing these eliminations?" "I believe Colonel Blackwood has been operating a murder-for-profit scheme disguised as national security, and I believe 17 American veterans have died because they tried to tell the truth about what they saw overseas." The restaurant fell silent except for the rain against the windows and the quiet hum of television equipment. Across the country, viewers were processing testimony that would trigger congressional investigations, criminal prosecutions, and a fundamental re-examination of how America treated its veterans. Tyler's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Well played, Mitchell, but this isn't over. RB." Looking up at the cameras, Tyler spoke directly to the man who'd destroyed his life. "Colonel, you're right. It's not over. It's just beginning." The dawn light filtering through the McDonald's windows revealed a changed world. Tyler's congressional testimony had triggered a cascade of investigations that moved with unprecedented speed. Within hours of the live stream ending, federal marshals had raided Titan Defense Corporation headquarters, while FBI teams simultaneously executed search warrants at facilities across 3 states. Jake coordinated with arriving federal agents, while Sarah Chen found herself reinstated and promoted to lead a newly formed task force investigating veteran-related crimes. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The detective who'd been threatened with suspension 12 hours earlier was now spearheading a federal investigation. "Status report," Tyler said, accepting a cup of coffee from Maria, who'd insisted on keeping the restaurant operational despite everything. "Blackwood's in federal custody," Sarah announced, reading from secure communications on her tablet. "Arrested at a private airfield trying to board a flight to a non-extradition country. They found classified documents and communication equipment that shouldn't exist outside government channels." Doc finished checking Tyler's vitals one final time. "Medically, you're cleared for normal activity. The taser effects have completely resolved. 17 families are about to get answers they've been waiting years for," Father Santos added, coordinating with victim advocacy groups across the country. The media coverage has prompted dozens of additional veterans to come forward with similar stories. Frost's voice carried satisfaction through their earpieces. Titan Defense Corporation stock has been suspended from trading. 3 other private military contractors are facing congressional subpoenas. The entire industry is in free fall. Tyler walked to the window where news crews were packing equipment as the immediate crisis wound down. The crowd of supporters had maintained their vigil through the night, and many were still there despite the early hour. Veterans in rain-soaked uniforms, families holding signs, community leaders ensuring their voices were heard. Congressional hearings are scheduled to begin next week, Senator Williams announced, approaching Tyler with a folder of official documents. Your testimony will be just the beginning. We're looking at systemic reforms to veteran care, oversight of military contractors, and criminal prosecutions that could reach the highest levels of government. Captain Torres arrived with a detail of officers, but this time to provide security rather than make arrests. Her face showed the strain of someone who'd spent the night reconciling career ambitions with moral obligations. Detective Chen, she said formally, I owe you an apology and an explanation. Sarah looked up from her laptop where she was coordinating with federal investigators. Captain, the pressure to close your investigation. It came from levels above my authority. I should have fought harder, but I was thinking about my pension, my family's security. Torres's voice carried genuine regret. That's not an excuse, just the truth. Captain, we all face those choices, Sarah replied. What matters is what we do when we realize we're on the wrong side. Tyler's phone buzzed with a call from his ex-wife, Jessica, Jake's sister-in-law. He hesitated before answering, unsure what to expect after 2 years of silence. Tyler? Hey, Jess. I saw the news, saw your testimony. Her voice carried emotions Tyler couldn't immediately identify. I wanted you to know. I'm proud of you, for speaking out, for surviving. All of this. Tyler's throat tightened. Jess, I'm sorry. For everything that happened, for how I handled. You were trying to do the right thing. I understand that now. We all do. The conversation was brief but healing. A recognition that some wounds could begin to close even when they couldn't be completely healed. Doc approached with official paperwork. Your benefits have been fully restored, retroactive to the date of discharge. Housing assistance, medical care, the works. It's not much compensation for what you've been through, but it's a start. What about the others? Tyler asked. The families of the 17 who didn't make it home. Congressional legislation is being drafted, Senator Williams replied. Survivor benefits, full military honors, and a memorial fund in their names. Their sacrifices won't be forgotten. Jake received a call on his secure line, his commanding officer at Naval Special Warfare Command. The conversation was brief, and when he hung up, his expression was unreadable. Court-martial? Tyler asked. Commendation, Jake replied with surprise. Turns out saving American lives and exposing corruption falls under exceptional service to country. They're recommending me for promotion, and the rest of the team, clean records all around. Officially, we were conducting a classified operation to protect a high-value intelligence asset. Jake's smile carried relief and irony. Sometimes the system works the way it's supposed to. Maria joined them, still wearing her McDonald's uniform, but now also wearing a press badge. CNN had offered her a position as a community correspondent covering stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. The corporate office called, she said. This restaurant is being designated as a historical site. They want to preserve it as a symbol of standing up for what's right. Father Santos coordinated final details with the shelter network, which was expanding nationwide with congressional funding to help veterans navigate bureaucracy and access services. "We're going to make sure no veteran falls through the cracks again," he promised. As the immediate crisis wound down, Tyler found himself standing in the same spot where Officer Hutchins had tased him less than 24 hours earlier. The transformation felt surreal, from homeless veteran to congressional witness, from invisible to unavoidable. "What's next?" Doc asked, recognizing the contemplative expression Tyler wore when processing major changes. "Healing," Tyler replied. "For all of us. The 17 families get closure, the system gets reformed, and maybe, just maybe, no veteran has to choose between speaking truth and staying alive." Sarah Chen packed her investigation files, now evidence in federal cases that would reshape how America treated its veterans. "Tyler, there's something else. The Attorney General wants you to head a new department, Veteran Justice Division, investigating cases where veterans have been failed by the system." Tyler looked around the McDonald's at the people who'd risked everything to save him, then out at the community that had rallied to support justice. 17 veterans had died trying to tell their stories. Now their voices would finally be heard, and their deaths would mean something more than corporate profits. "I accept," he said quietly. "Someone needs to make sure this never happens again." 6 months after the siege at McDonald's, Tyler stood before a packed auditorium at the Veterans Affairs Medical Center in San Diego, wearing a crisp suit that felt foreign after years on the streets. The crowd included members of Congress, military leadership, and hundreds of veterans whose lives had been changed by what the media had dubbed the last stand. But as he looked out at the sea of faces, Tyler's mind drifted to a very different scene, a corner booth in a fast food restaurant where a young woman's simple kindness had set everything in motion. "When I sat in that corner booth 6 months ago," Tyler began, his voice carrying to the back of the auditorium, "I thought I was invisible, forgotten, just another casualty of a system that had no use for inconvenient truths. I believed that Tyler Mitchell, Navy SEAL, decorated veteran, witness to war crimes, had ceased to exist. In his place was Ghost, a homeless man nursing cold coffee and trying to survive one day at a time." Maria Gonzalez sat in the front row, her CNN press credentials hanging around her neck. The same hands that had refilled Tyler's coffee that morning now held a Peabody Award for her investigative series on veteran homelessness. But more importantly, her reporting had prompted policy changes that provided immediate housing assistance for any veteran in crisis. "But I wasn't invisible to Maria Gonzalez," Tyler continued, his eyes finding her in the crowd. "Her simple act of kindness, refilling a coffee cup, treating me with dignity when others looked through me, reminded me that I was still human, still worthy of respect. Maria, you saw a person when the world saw a problem. That made all the difference." Maria wiped tears from her eyes as the audience erupted in applause. Since the events at McDonald's, she had left her manager position to become CNN's leading correspondent for veteran affairs, but she still volunteered at the resource center every weekend, ensuring that no veteran ever felt invisible on her watch. "I wasn't invisible to my brothers," Tyler said, his voice growing stronger as his eyes found Jake, Doc, and Frost in the audience. When the alert went out that Ghost was down, they didn't hesitate. They didn't calculate the cost to their careers or their families. They risked everything because they understood that the oath we swore to defend this country and protect each other doesn't expire when you leave the service. Behind the stage, Jake Sullivan adjusted his new rank insignia. His promotion to commander had come with assignment to lead the Pentagon's new Veterans Integrity Office, tasked with investigating allegations of retaliation against service members who reported misconduct. His family sat beside him, Jessica and their children finally understanding why their father had risked everything for a brother in need. "Jake Sullivan taught me that leadership means sacrifice," Tyler continued. "He was willing to give up his career, his pension, everything he'd worked for, because he remembered what we promised each other in those forward operating bases. No one gets left behind. That promise doesn't come with an expiration date." Doc Williams had left his paramedic job to join Tyler's Veteran Justice Division as Deputy Director of Crisis Response. The underground network that had saved Tyler now operated with federal funding and congressional oversight, ensuring no veteran in crisis would face their battles alone. In the past 6 months, Doc's teams had responded to over 3,000 emergency calls. "Tommy Williams showed me that healing isn't just about medical care," Tyler said. "It's about seeing the whole person, understanding their pain, and never giving up on their recovery. Doc, you've been saving lives since Afghanistan, and you're still doing it every day." Alex Frost Jensen occupied his usual position in the back of the auditorium, monitoring security while simultaneously coordinating the event's live stream to overflow locations across the country. His cybersecurity firm now held contracts to protect veteran service organizations from the kind of electronic surveillance that had once threatened them. Alex Jensen proved that the quiet professionals are often the most powerful, Tyler continued. "Frost, your ability to see everything while remaining invisible yourself gave us the tactical advantage we needed to expose the truth." "Detective Sarah Chen showed me that integrity still exists in law enforcement," Tyler continued. Sarah sat with Captain Torres, who had survived a departmental investigation and now ran the SDPD's new Community Veterans Liaison program. Sarah chose truth over career advancement, justice over job security. She risked her badge because she understood that some principles are worth more than paychecks. Sarah's investigation had become the foundation for prosecutions that reached the highest levels of government and corporate America. Her methodical documentation of the conspiracy had provided evidence that was holding up in federal courts across the country. Father Miguel Santos occupied a seat near the middle of the auditorium, surrounded by volunteers from his expanded shelter network. Federal funding had allowed them to open facilities in 12 states, each one equipped with counselors, legal advocates, and job placement specialists. "Father Santos proved that faith without action is meaningless," Tyler said. "His shelter became a sanctuary not just for bodies, but for souls that the system had broken. Father, you showed me that hope is a choice we make every day, especially when circumstances suggest we should despair. Today, we dedicate this memorial not to celebrate what happened, but to honor those who didn't live to see justice," Tyler said, his voice growing heavier. Behind him, a wall displayed the names and photographs of 17 veterans who had died trying to tell their stories. Each name was accompanied by their service record, their decorations, and a brief description of the war crimes they had witnessed. The memorial itself was housed in the renovated McDonald's, now expanded into a comprehensive Veterans Resource Center. The corner booth where Tyler had sat that morning was preserved behind glass, but the rest of the building buzzed with activity. Counselors meeting with veterans, legal advocates helping with benefits claims, job placement specialists connecting warriors with employers who valued their skills. Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez, Corporal James Thompson, Lieutenant Sarah Kim. Tyler read the names slowly, allowing each one to resonate through the auditorium. These 17 Americans died not in combat, but in the shadows of a conspiracy designed to silence their voices. They witnessed war crimes and tried to report them. They were labeled as problems, discredited, and ultimately eliminated. The audience included family members of the 17 dead veterans, each of whom had received full military honors in reinterment ceremonies that recognized their sacrifice. Survivor benefits had been extended to their families, along with college funds for their children. Colonel Richard Blackwood received a life sentence without possibility of parole, Tyler announced, his words met with respectful silence. Titan Defense Corporation was dissolved, its assets seized to fund veteran programs. 14 government officials and 12 corporate executives were convicted of conspiracy, fraud, and in some cases, murder. The legal aftermath had been swift and comprehensive. Congressional hearings had exposed the full scope of the conspiracy, leading to reforms in military contracting, veteran services, and oversight of private military corporations. But the real victory isn't in the punishments handed down to those who betrayed their oaths, Tyler continued. The real victory is in the lives we've saved since. The statistics were remarkable. Veteran homelessness in San Diego had decreased by 60%. Similar reductions were being recorded in cities across the country as the expanded network provided immediate crisis response and long-term support services. Veteran suicide rates had dropped by 30% in areas where the new support systems operated. In the past 6 months, our crisis intervention teams have responded to over 3,000 emergency calls. 3,000 veterans who might have been forgotten, ignored, or worse. Each one received immediate assistance, housing, medical care, and legal advocacy. Tyler's voice caught slightly as he continued, but more importantly, each one was reminded that they matter, that their service meant something, that they are not invisible. Jake approached the podium as Tyler stepped aside, beginning the formal dedication ceremony. Today we establish the Tyler Mitchell Veterans Resource Center, but more than that, we establish a promise. No veteran will ever again face their battles alone. The ceremony concluded with the unveiling of a plaque beside the preserved corner booth in memory of 17 American veterans who died seeking justice, in honor of those who refused to let their voices be silenced, in commitment to ensuring no warrior is ever forgotten. As the audience filed out, Tyler found himself standing in the preserved dining area with the people who had saved his life. The booth where everything began now served as a reminder that kindness could change the world, that brotherhood transcended bureaucracy, and that truth, however buried, would eventually surface. Maria touched the glass case, protecting the booth where her act of kindness had started everything. "Do you think they're proud?" she asked quietly, referring to the 17 veterans whose names were etched on the memorial wall. "The ones who didn't make it home. I think they're finally at peace," Doc replied, his medical training extending to matters of the soul. "Their stories were heard, their deaths meant something, and their brothers and sisters are being protected." Jake placed a hand on Tyler's shoulder, the gesture carrying the weight of shared missions and mutual respect. "You did it, Ghost. You kept the faith when everything else was stripped away." "We did it," Tyler corrected, looking around at each of them. "All of us, together. That's what makes us family, not blood, but choice. The choice to stand up when it would be easier to stay down. The choice to fight when surrender would be simpler." Father Santos offered a brief prayer for the fallen and the living, while Frost ensured the ceremony was properly archived for future generations. Sarah Chen was already coordinating with other cities wanting to establish similar centers, her investigation model becoming the standard for veteran-related criminal cases. As they prepared to leave, Tyler took one last look at the memorial wall. 17 names, 17 faces, 17 stories that had finally been told. Their sacrifice had exposed a conspiracy, reformed a system, and saved thousands of lives. But more than that, they had proven that in America, truth could still triumph over power, justice could still prevail over profit, and the bonds forged in service were stronger than any system designed to break them. "No one left behind," he whispered, the words carrying the weight of an oath fulfilled and a promise renewed. Outside, veterans across the country were receiving the care and respect they had earned through their service. The invisible had become visible, the forgotten had been remembered, and the American promise to those who served was being kept with a vigilance born from tragedy and strengthened by determination. The last stand was over. The real work, ensuring it never happened again, was just beginning. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.